No, they was literally on his face. They wasn't up here, they was on his face.
Matter of fact, I need to make sure I got everything out the car I need, so I don't have to go back up there.
That's my one. She put her things in everything. I found them in the bathroom, on the stove. She'll just take them off and put them down anyway. I'll be like, I need mine everywhere. I wear mine when I go to sleep, so I see them in the room.
Look, that's funny, because I literally had to take Phillips off his face because.
I fall asleep with him.
Y'all doing all right?
Doing well, doing well.
Awesome. Got your early choir rehearsal in.
Yeah, that made him do what he could do.
That's right.
Early rehearsal. So y'all ready to go?
Yeah. It was delayed on the phone, trying to do the phone practice. And it helps a little bit, but it don't, because we be all singing and coming in at different times.
I can, but I forgot I'm going off the Bluetooth, not this.
Right, so when you play it, you have to play it from, you have to have, you can't use this microphone and the Bluetooth.
No.
And you tried to turn the Bluetooth on while this mic was on?
Because you gotta either use the line in, or you gotta use the Bluetooth.
Which line you plug this in?
Yeah.
What
I was already plugged in when I came in. Let me show you.
Right, but you don't have to plug this in.
Why was that plugged in then?
It shouldn't have been plugged in. Well, if it was, I probably tested yesterday. But this run without this. This is basically a charger.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know that. I just seen it plugged in.
You don't have to plug this in. Just put that back where you're at, and it runs off of this. So you just have to turn the power on there.
Man, we couldn't.
Go try to play it now.
Need that. You got groceries? Like, that's the whole purpose of that. You can't play music and use your mic.
I tested it yesterday, but I didn't test it with the music. Yeah. Microphone.
We gonna give him glory.
Ready to go, Papa song.
You woke me up this morning.
Problem song.
You started me on my way.
Yeah. That was just for the, that's just the charger.
Okay.
Yeah, that song.
That's like, this is the lead microphone. Okay. This is the lead, so this mic should always be the lead. And the other ones are, like,
I wanna thank you, y'all, for everything you done for me.
Yeah.
You saved my life and now I got the victory.
What time is it?
9:35, let's go. Sing this song and get.
Alright, make sure we, I wanna make sure we stay on time. So we can get on out of here. We're gonna, we need to be done by 10:40. That'll give us 20 minutes transition. So if anything y'all need to do, I know y'all had a little earlier rehearsal. So if you need a little extra more time, y'all can't say Moreh ain't cut it short for y'all. Give y'all 20 minutes. The extra 20, all right? So, Brother Eric, make sure to keep me on the timer, 9:40, and then we can go ahead and get started. Well, definitely excited about today.
Amen. We definitely need to, for future reference, we need to get a digital clock.
Yeah, we'll get
back
one.
wall.
We'll get one.
Yeah.
We'll
We
get
have it
one.
on the list.
Yeah, we got it on the list. So we're gonna go ahead and get started this morning with our Bible study. And again, I'm excited on today. Today we're celebrating the Hebrew New Year, even though it isn't until the 25th, but because of a lot of the things that's going on, we'll celebrate it on today collectively and corporately, but also in your homes on the 25th. Do make sure you do celebrate within your home however that may be, however you want to do it within your own. It isn't it's not a mandatory thing. It's not, within the law or within the culture, anything like that, that commands or demands, that it must be done. But there's nothing wrong with having a good time. There's nothing wrong with honoring and celebrating another year, and whatnot. People do it, on the Gregorian calendar, and so there's nothing wrong with doing it within the Hebrew culture. So we want to get to a lesson here, and again, next week, next month, if it's the Most High's will that we are here, and it hasn't been put into the laws of the land for us not to be able to assemble, we shall continue to assemble, and we shall be moving forward with our Bible study with different teachers and things like that. So I'm just kind of kicking it off for everybody, and then we're going to kind of move from there, and we'll have our Bible studies on each and every Sabbath. All right, so kind of want to finish up on what we kind of dealt with last week. Who remembers what last week's lesson was for Bible study?
Last week's lesson was in the midst of the storm.
In the midst of the storm. Okay. What were some of the things we were talking about in our Bible study?
Talked about how sorrows are the doorway to adversity.
Hopelessness.
Hopelessness. I'm sorry, I got it right here in my notes. Sorrows is the doorway to hopelessness. And sometimes the Most High can use those things to bring us closer to Him. Not all the time that they're done to drive us away, but it shouldn't be
right
that it drives us away, but it should increase our faith and our commitment to Him.
Who remembers the first Bible study? What did we talk about?
We talking about
We only had two. It's the third one.
Yep. The first one, who rejected Christ.
The first one is who rejected. Okay, we saying we're taking notes. We'll keep it up. We make sure we all keep up with the notes that we're taking, because it may end up. That's all right. That's all right. We're getting that. This is our third one, so we just make sure that you just never know. You may be called upon to come up here and teach that exact lesson. So it's very important to understand this. This is something that if we're going to be Israelites within our culture, we have to make sure we take the scripture serious, and make sure that every time we open this book, that we're taking notes. We know what's going on, because you just never know what may, end up having to be ready at all times. Even when I was in the Christian church, my pastor always told me, you should never tell the pastor that you have nothing to teach or preach. If he called upon you, even if it's that Sunday morning, and there was sometimes that was Sunday morning, I got called in the office. Hey, I ain't gonna be able to teach today. Can you do it? Sometimes it was a trial, and sometimes it was for real. And I always was ready and on deck. And so when he called upon my name to do it, he would sit in his office and listen from his office. And then we'll go from there. So that's the thing that's very important to understand. So today we're going to deal with the outpouring of the Spirit. And y'all know, in this day and age, in this day and time, y'all know what I'm always harboring and pointing and pushing you to not only understand culture, not understand heritage, not understand these things, but I'm always pushing for you to grow spiritually. Grow spiritual. I'm always talking about, hey, whatever form of fasting that you can do in your capacity, whatever form of prayer life, I'm always pushing these things. I'm always telling you to move forward in these things. You have to grow. The time that we're living in right now is very important to understand why I've always kept saying to all of you, and those even online who watch online, I've always said, listen, grow spiritually. Do not allow your study life to supersede your prayer life. Because in the day and age and the times in which we live, you're going to need to be spiritually mature. And this is why I'm always talking about that. And so these things are going to come to us in the time of trouble, and in a time where people are beginning to be in sorrows and hopelessness. So the first time we talked about, let's talk about who rejected Christ. We got into who rejected Christ. We talked about, there were 3 points of emphasis that we focused on. One point of emphasis we focused on the people, right? Who was the people?
Israel.
Okay. We talked about the position. Who was the position?
On the authority. No, I'm sorry. It was the Sanhedrin Council.
Okay, the Pharisees or Sanhedrin Council, whatnot, they were the people in position. And who was the powers?
Right, Rome.
The Romans. Okay. So we're going to start back real quick. We're going to go to John chapter number 1, and we're only going to read 2 verses, because I want to read those 2 verses to establish where we're going. Okay. Lady Emma, would you read John chapter number 1, and I want you to read. I want you to read verses number 12 and 13.
But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So
those who believe consist of what? Israel only?
No, sir.
Right? How do we know that? What is an example to prove to us scripturally that Israel wasn't the only one who believed?
Paul's whole mission of the journey, his whole mission was to be an apostle to the Gentiles.
Okay, let me be more specific. During the time that Christ walked, give me an example to prove this statement of what he's saying. Go ahead.
He told them, I have not seen so much faith in Israel.
Who he talked about?
Huh?
Who? It was the Roman soldier, right? Okay, is that Roman soldier an Israelite?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, which qualifies verse number 13, right? Read verse number 13.
Which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God.
See, you have to always remember the purpose of why he come. Yes, to die for Israel, but also to bring salvation to the world, right? Israel is used as a catalyst and used as a tool in his hand because mankind is relational. He's using them to be an example. Hey, this is how the mankind should walk. I'm going to use you as a group of people to show the world how to follow me. Right. We know there was issues within that situation. When leadership wasn't doing it, they also started adding laws to the Most High's laws and all these other things, right? So now here comes Christ, Hamashiach comes on the scene to actually show us what it looks like to walk and keep the Torah in the flesh, right? But not only keep the Torah in the flesh, not only the letter of the Torah, but also to show you how to walk in the spirit of the Torah, right? So this is very important. Now, let's jump over to Acts chapter number 15. Acts chapter number 15, and Mrs. Casey, read verse number 1 for me. Once you get it.
This is Acts chapter 15, starting at verse 1.
Uh-huh.
And certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren, and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, you cannot be saved.
So, see, this whole battle in the New Testament, after Hamashiach ascends, this type of conflict was going on all the time.
Right.
Because you had 2 sects of people. Well, I'll say you had 3 sects of people. You had those who were disciples of the Pharisees, who still was believing that the laws of Moses are the only means of salvation.
Right.
So you got to keep sacrificing. You got to keep doing all these things because those people were still waiting on the Savior, right?
That's right.
The second group of people you had were the people of the way. Those people who believed in Hamashiach, who also lived and kept the aspects of the Torah, but also understood the spirit behind the law and understood that salvation came through the Messiah, and because of salvation through the Messiah, this is why we keep the Torah, right? The third group of people would just say, hey, look, I'm going to make sure that I believe in Hamashiach, and I'm going to make sure I sacrifice animals. Because I got to hedge my bets. I got to make sure, because I'm really not all the way convinced on either side. Right? So they wrote the fence. And this is what you read in verse number 1. Read it again.
And certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved.
See, certain men came down to Judea. Certain men came down to Judea. That's distinct. The Bible is separating and putting a big beam on these men and what they were actually teaching, right? They're focusing on, except you be circumcised after the laws of Moses, right? Which also, does that deal with the heart, and does that deal with that foreskin, right? Their emphasis is the foreskin. Even though within the Torah, it talks about your heart being circumcised, but their emphasis is focusing on the foreskin, right? So he said, except you be circumcised on the outside, you can't have no salvation. This is what they said. This was the teaching. Go ahead.
The question. The certain men, they had to be people that were in leadership, in leadership, that were actually teaching, right?
Not necessarily. There were people who were teaching that wasn't even rocking with the disciple or the apostle.
Okay.
We even see that during the time of Christ. When he was walking, his disciples, they were complaining about others who was teaching in his name that didn't even roll with him. So the Bible doesn't specifically say that these men were men who were rocking with him, because at that time there was a whole lot of people saying, I believe. Right? There were thousands of people saying they believe. But many of them said that they believed, but they still was they weren't all the way in, shall I say.
Now,
okay?
The second part of that would be, is this an example of them speaking to Gentiles? I know it doesn't say that, but if people were from Israel, they would already have kept the law by circumcising their kids on the 8th day.
We don't know that.
I'm saying, I'm not trying to isolate.
No. That's not eisegeting. The thing is that there were still people during that time that were coming into knowing that they were Israel, who came from a Gentile mindset, right?
Okay.
So you still had people who were of a Gentile mindset that now come in, because the northern kingdom was scattered before the southern kingdom, right? So henceforth, you had people who still had that mindset, who 40 years old, 50 years old. And we also know that the Gentile, especially when you read certain histories of it, that the foreskin of the act of not being circumcised was also a sign that you was rocking with that particular group. Read about the Greeks, right? So when we look at that from that perspective, what about somebody that's 40 years old, 50 years old, is now coming into the truth, and they ain't been circumcised? How do you deal with that? What about people who are circumcised on their foreskin that know they Israelites, but their heart is not circumcised?
Okay.
How do you deal with that? See, this is the spirit behind the law that Christ was trying to get to us, right? So come on, let's keep reading. Verse number 2.
When therefore Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and disputation with them, they determined that Paul and Barnabas and certain other of them should go up to Jerusalem unto the apostles and elders about this question.
So there's a conflict. There have always been conflicts in the church,
Right.
or amongst the body of believers. There are people within the assemblies that are arguing, they fellowshipping, but they arguing about was a Mashiach born of a virgin. They say they're Israel, they fellowshipping. There are people within Israel that fellowship that can't determine which is the Shabbat. Is it Saturday? Is it a rotating Sabbath? There are people who follow rotating Sabbaths. This Tuesday is the Sabbath. Next Thursday is the Sabbath.
Wow.
All these things. There's conflict going on within the body. So here's a conflict. There are people within the body that are arguing about what calendar is the right calendar. Should we be keeping Passover on this day or this week? And all that. So here's the conflict that's going on between all the people within the. So the people say, look, we know Paul is a teacher. We know Barnabas is a teacher. Instead of us arguing against them, let's go to them, bring it to them, and let them go to Jerusalem.
All right.
Why are they going to Jerusalem? Who's in Jerusalem? Come on, y'all talk.
Peter, Paul, Peter, James,
Who's there?
apostles.
The apostles are there, right? So they aren't making notice. Paul nor Barnabas is making a decision about doctrine without going to Jerusalem. Why? Because there's levels to this. It's something people don't want to deal with. People don't want to deal with leadership. Oh, we all equal. When it comes to leadership, when you look at that and how the body is established, there were leadership. This is the reason why they went to Jerusalem. This is the capital. And Peter and James and John, when it came down to making decisions upon doctrine, yeah, there were other apostles. They were there. Paul walks in the spirit of the apostles, but at the end of the day, you have to go, and that's where the term chief apostle comes from. At the end of the day, they still had to go to Jerusalem to deal with this matter about this issue. Paul didn't say, well, you know, my opinion is, because I'm the leader here in this group, or Barnabas said, because we're the leaders here, and we baptized y'all and brought y'all into the faith, we're going to make a decision on this. No, they still respected leadership and authority. And this is the problem with Israel today. They feel as though they can make decisions without understanding that there are also those who are in Israel that holds a position of leadership in the Most High eyes, not in their man's eyes. Because we pick and choose who we want as our leader based on what we agree with them on.
Right. That's it.
Yeah, oh, you know, I ain't rocking with Ak over there because, you know, he don't wear fringes. He got more authority because he wear fringes. Now, if we want to deal with this, then what happens? You deal with this matter of doctrine, disagreement, behind closed doors. You get leaders together to deal with doctrine. Not this gossip stuff amongst the people. You want to know something? Get leaders together. Within the community, let them go behind these doors while y'all stay out of there and let them deal with doctrine. And when they come out, I'm pretty sure, I'm confident that the Ruach is going to give revelation of what's going on back there. But as long as we have these situations, Stephen, that was my issue within the Christian church. You got deacons, got more authority and more power than the pastor. Well, that ain't even Bible. That's not even in the Bible. How in the world does the deacon have more authority than the man who stands here? And they control the situation. They voting folk in and they voting folk out. I don't want to go down that. Let's come on. Let's keep reading here. Okay, go. Let's read verse number 2 again, Minister Casey.
Where's he reading from?
Acts chapter number 15. Verse number 2.
Acts 15, verse 2. When therefore Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and disputation with them, they determined that Paul and Barnabas and certain other of them should go up to Jerusalem unto the apostles and elders about this question.
They should go to the apostles and the elders, not the lay members.
That's right.
About this question. Because this was a serious thing. People wrestle with this. If I ain't circumcised on the foreskin, I'm going to hell. This is what they're teaching. They didn't say, it's not even about if you receive Yeshua or not. This wasn't even the matter. You putting people in hell by foreskin? Mind you, that we're going to be in glorified bodies. Ain't going to be no foreskin in the kingdom. You arguing about foreskin? And it's your very heart that's callous that's going to keep you out of the kingdom?
Come on. Yes.
And this is what these brothers said. Look, man, go to Jerusalem. We're going to go to Jerusalem to deal with this. We're not going to deal with this amongst y'all because y'all crazy. Y'all be done twisted our words and everything. Come on, keep reading. Verse number 3.
And being brought on their way by the church, they passed through Phoenicia and Samaria, declaring the conversation of the Gentiles.
Declaring the conversion of the Gentiles. Come on.
Conversions of the Gentiles. And they caused great joy unto all the brothers. And when they were come to Jerusalem, they were received of the church and of the apostles and elders, and they declared all things that God had done with them.
Yes.
But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees.
Listen to this now. You got a sect because the Pharisees were slick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got some Pharisees running around here. There are some Pharisees that are posing like true believers. These are some Pharisees that are actually sending people within assemblies to cause conflict within the assembly. You got these folks, they come with, you can't be saved unless you have your foreskin circumcised. They planting seeds. Now mind you, the people wouldn't have had to come to Paul and Barnabas and have them to go to Jerusalem if the certain sect would have went to Paul and Barnabas.
See?
The certain sect didn't go to Paul and Barnabas. The certain sect went to the people to rile them up. Look at this. Come on, read again.
But there arose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees which believed.
Certain sects of the, I told y'all there were different sects, there were 3 groups of people. You got Pharisees which believed on Christ too.
That's right.
But they still believe that, well, we still got to sacrifice animal. Only works. The emphasis is, okay, we agree that he's the Savior, but the works is the only thing going to get you in. Missing that the spirit of the law is what's going to give you understanding and allow you to walk in the law.
Right.
They still say, we believe he's the Savior, but the letter rules.
What?
Come on, read.
But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees which believed, saying that it was needful to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses.
Look at that. They believe. Now check this out. These Pharisees believed on Hamashiach. But the emphasis of the salvation ain't on Hamashiach. This is not saying the law done away with. But the emphasis, because Hebrew writer teaches us that if it was by these Pharisees and these Levitical priests, then there wouldn't be a need for another priest to come to show us how to walk in the spirit of it. Come on, let's read.
And the apostles and the elders came together for to consider of this matter.
Okay, so what do y'all think? If you were in that position and you are upon the elders and the board of the apostles, you heard this, what would be your response?
Go back to what we were taught. When we walked with Messiah, how did he instruct us?
Okay.
Following his path. If he didn't teach us this, then why should we continue and put the burden on the people to do this?
Okay.
That would be contrary of him coming.
Okay.
They had to believe that he fulfilled the law, that his sacrifice of dying took the place of any further sacrifices. So that means that we don't have to keep that sabbatical part of the law, or the sacrifices of animals and shedding of foreskin. He had to have taught them this at some point in time for them to even consider.
Okay.
Because him being wise, he probably knew that this would come up later on.
Okay, what else? Anybody else? If you was in this, you heard this, you're amongst the elders, right? Because you have the apostles who holds the authority, and then you have the elders around too. Now the elders, they aren't on the, if you want to talk about levels, they aren't on the same level when it comes down to it. So there's conversation amongst them, but at the end of the day, they are looking at the leadership, the apostles, to make a final decision. If you are an elder or if you are amongst the apostles, you've heard this about circumcision, dealing with salvation. Now mind you, these are Pharisees, so they are respected too. Right. They have understanding of the law. So now here's the clash. How do you deal with two people? One who has authority and known by the people and having an understanding of the letter. Then you have another group of people who walk with the Messiah, who have an understanding spiritually of the law. The people got to wrestle. The people in wrestling, who do I go with? Who do I decide? So if you in this position, how would you vote? Get out of yourselves. I know it's kind of hard to do that, but how would you vote? Go ahead.
What the apostles did, if you remember, when Yeshua and the apostles ate on they picked the corn, and the Pharisees were going at them, asking them, why your men picking and eating the corn on the Sabbath day. He was giving them an example on, you're using these traditions, and a lot of these things were traditions that they were using. That's what I assume, that they were just using tradition on a lot of things, and not just by the law, but they were just using tradition. They incorporated a lot of tradition into a lot of things. Like today, from where I come from, you don't have the gift of the Holy Spirit unless you speak in tongues.
Yeah, that's a radical Pentecostal.
Yeah,
it's radical Pentecostal.
And see, from what I understand, there are a bunch of different gifts.
Yeah, absolutely.
That the gift of service, the gift of music, the gift of singing, the gift of a bunch of gifts, and it's not just the gift of speaking in tongues.
So is there a law that says that you can't pluck corn on the Sabbath? Is that considered work?
Not long. If you just eat it, no. If you plug it to sing, it's only
Okay. So if you pluck the corn on the Sabbath, which means they're asking a question for entrapment.
Oh, yeah.
They know the law. One thing we can give credit to the Pharisees and Sadducees, they know the law.
Yeah.
You can't even be considered one of them.
Like you can't. You couldn't even walk in a synagogue or a temple and anybody hands you a scroll unless you were qualified. That's why I tell people all the time, you complain about when you're going to teach, you ought to be thankful somebody asked you to read.
Boy, come on.
Because they just didn't have anybody reading. So Hamashiach walk in the temple, they had him a scroll, they recognize and they understand that he's a teacher. Because they've tried him several times when it came down to the law. Right? So this is something that's still prevalent. This is after he ascends, they're still talking about the law. They're still wrestling with this thing. And the wrestle isn't of the people of the way. The wrestle are the people of the Pharisees. Because they're still following men. And this is why many of us wrestle, because we still been taught by those who are traditionalists who teach the letter of the law, but don't teach the ruach behind the law. And this is why many people wrestle. This is why they're going through a tugging back and forth. And the only way you're going to get out of that tug, you have to totally break and separate and petition to the Most High. That's the only way. I cannot convince you. Only the Ruach can. Right? So, Brother Robert, read verse number 6.
Acts 15?
Yep, Acts 15:6.
Okay. And the apostles and elders came together for to consider of this matter. And when there had been much disputing, Peter rose up and said unto them, Men and brethren, ye know how that a good while ago God made choice among us, that the Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe.
Stop. Wait a minute. Go back and read verse number 6 again.
And the apostles and elders came together for to consider of this matter.
Come on, read verse number 7.
And when there had been much dispute.
Wait, stop. The apostles and the elders are disputing whether or not is circumcision a requirement for salvation. Even leaders can get in their own way and try to protect. Sometimes people want to get to protect rank, to protect their rank. They disputing amongst each other.
How in the world can outsiders come in and cause us to dispute amongst each other after we already know the foundation that Christ laid? And we allow people from the outside to come in here and drop a seed on one person. And next up, that person get to talking to that person get to talking to that person. Next thing you know, everybody in here confused, they are chaos. They don't even trust the words of the leader or anybody else that's teaching. Then you have people that's sitting there want to go to war with the leadership. And not only that, because many of us get seeds planted in us from people outside here, we'll come in because we listen to them, and then we want this house to teach what you've been listening to. It's crazy. Now there's a dispute. Well, I heard such and such say this. Why don't we do it? You can't bring ideas from out there into here. That's right. We're a different part of the body. That's right. We are a different part of the body. You don't see the brain trying to act like a knee. Different parts of the body. The brain tells the knee to lift its leg or lift the leg, and they all work together in concert. They're not going against, they're not fighting against each other. This is why the body and understanding the analogy of it is very important. Brain, you take care of your business. Your job is thinking. My job is move. Matter of fact, you're not hard enough to deal and do what I do. Because if you try to do what I do, you soft. You educated, but you're soft. The knee can withstand more force than the brain. So we have to understand this. Come on, let's read Robert. 7, verse 7.
And when there had been much disputing, Peter rose up and said unto them, Men and brethren, you know how that a good while ago God made choice among us, that the Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe.
So you got one, it's always one person with common sense. Somebody got to have some sense. Now, when you're talking about dealing with the capital of Jerusalem and where the ecclesia was established, everybody knew that Peter was the man. If anybody can calm this stuff, it's Peter. He's the one that got the revelation of who Hamashiach was before anybody. So surely if he's going to say something, he's going to say something from the Spirit or from his experience of walking and watching Hamashiach, right? So what did Peter say? What did Peter read that again?
You know how that a good while ago God made choice among us that the Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel.
What is he talking about?
Him going to the leader's house.
Okay, that's one thing. That's good. But what is he talking about that God chose that from my mouth?
Oh, when he made the statement that who Christ was, he said, blessed art thou, Son, for flesh and blood and not revealed it to you,
right,
in heaven. And upon this rock, the Ruach.
Right. So he gets the revelation of the Ruach, right? He gets the revelation by the Ruach or by the Father that this is the Son. But it didn't stop there because he still had to go through his maturation process, right? So he has to go through his maturation process. He still believes that he is the Messiah, but he's still going through levels of doubt, right? And it was also told to him, so he told him and other disciples, don't go into the ways of the Gentiles, right? Because they're still walking and they're still disciples. They still have maturity to deal with. Now, once he ascends, he gives the order now that you've matured and I want to put the Ruach in you. Now you have something that can combat the world. So from this point on, when you receive the Ruach, now you're able to go and make decisions the way I think. Right? Because it's the Ruach. That's not in combat. It's not combating the Son, nor is it combating the Father. They work in concert, right? So the decisions that have to be made And this is how you know who has the Ruach. When you look at people and how they function and how they act and the integrity of people, you go right back to the Gospels and see, are they talking like a Mashiach? Are they walking like a Mashiach? Are they teaching like a Mashiach? It doesn't have to be any confusion. If people are dealing in any place more than they dealing with a Mashiach, the question mark should go over their head.
Come on. Come on.
Question mark should go over their head. Especially in the day and age in which we live. So here goes Peter. Verse number 8, read it.
And Yah, which knoweth the hearts, bear them witness, giving them the Holy Spirit of the Ruach, even as he did unto us.
Like he say, the Ruach was given to the Gentile. Think about this now. Now we know in Acts, we know in Acts, and later on, there were also, you had those, especially in Acts chapter 2, you had those who were Gentile by mindset or who were scattered during that time. But we also know, when we look at the 4 Gospels, we know that Yeshua blessed and dealt with natural blood Gentiles. So whichever way you slice it, because everybody trying to figure out, well, is Acts, is it talking about Gentiles who were Gentile by conversion? Are they natural blood Israelites? Or are they not? You got this war, this confused, this argument going on within Israel about can Gentiles be saved and all these other things. All you got to do is go to the gospel. Look at the gospels. Look at how he dealt with them. Then he also dealt with those who were scattered Israelites, who believed that they were Gentiles, but he also dealt with and blessed those who were natural blood Gentiles, who were not of the house of Judah and who was not of the house of Israel. So if the Father is doing that, why are we arguing and being confused about whether or not if he's poured out his Spirit upon the Gentiles? This makes no sense. If salvation is to come, and you go back to Genesis, the one who got the revelation of salvation to come wasn't even an Israelite. Eve got the first revelation. In the garden. Salvation coming through your descendant. He wasn't talking to Adam. And then if we fast forward, then he tells Abraham, which means he's not sexist. Because he gives the revelation to the woman and he gives the revelation to the man.
What?
He's not sexist. If this is going to be a record, because here's the thing, all of that, then you go to Joel. He poured out his Spirit upon all flesh, male and female, your sons and your daughters. And just in case you want to get twisted, y'all want to have bondmen and bondwomen, okay, cool. You want to have the Gentile going to be your slave? Well, I'm going to pour out the Spirit on them too. Upon your bondmen and upon your bondwomen. So I ain't just going to give it to your daughters and your sons because it's bigger than that.
Yes.
I tried at one time to give y'all all the attention. And it went to your head. And because my plan was always about bringing redemption back to mankind, because if it was all about, so much about just Israel, this is what Peter is saying, if it was so much all about Israel, then the Father would have created Israel in the garden.
Well.
He would have created them in the garden. He would have called Adam and Eve Israel. And been done. So he said, I'm pouring out my Spirit. Now I'm using you, Israel.
Come on. Yes.
I made a covenant and a promise with you.
Yes.
I made it in the old, and I made it in the renewed or the new, whichever way you want to call it.
Yes.
I'm still making a covenant with you. I still love you. I'm still attached to you. But don't get it twisted. My promise was for mankind.
Come on. Break that down. Yes.
And because I love you, I chose you to represent me in the earth. But you let it get to your head that you think you God too.
Come on.
you Yeshua Junior. Come on, go ahead.
Okay, Jacob, he hated that.
Not Jacob.
Not between Esau. If Esau gay, then why, would they, is that salvation for them?
We going another lie. That's a whole nother lesson. That's a whole nother lesson. Let me just say this. Who were the two that went into the promised land? Who were the two that went to the promised land? Because you asked the question, is salvation for Esau? Right?
Right.
Who were the two that went into the promised land?
Joshua and
Joshua and Caleb, right? Were both of them Israelites?
No.
Who was an Israelite? Joshua was an Israelite, right? Was Caleb an Israelite?
No.
What was Caleb? Okay, anybody know what was Caleb? What, mother, what was Caleb?
They say he was an Edomite.
Caleb was an Edomite.
That's right.
Who did the Edomites descend from?
Esau.
So how does Caleb, who was identified as keeping the Torah almost to the T, right? How does he go into the promised land if it ain't no salvation for Esau? Now people take certain scriptures and use that as him saying, first of all, here's another point. Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated. He didn't tell you to hate Esau. And then he said, I hate Esau. He didn't say I hate his children. Look, Caleb got a portion of the same thing Israel got.
Yeah.
And then when you read Amos, the Most High called Edom his children. I'm done. Case closed. We ain't gotta go into it. We ain't gotta go into it.
No closed remarks.
And guess what? Esau ain't the white man.
That's right. We talked about that. Yes, sir.
We know.
So how do we know that some of your brothers who call themselves Israel ain't Esau?
Right.
Because there were some Edomites who took on Israel culture and became Israelites.
Absolutely.
By name. And got on them ships with you.
There you go.
Because they accepted the covenant, they're gonna accept the curses too.
Roll.
Anyway, let's roll. Where we at? Come on, verse number 9. Come on, y'all. What time is it?
About 10 something.
What time is it?
10:20.
Huh?
10:20.
Oh, okay. That's what I said. 11:20. What? Went over.
Way over.
Come on. We're over. Let me get another reader. Let's read. Give me another reader. Somebody else read. We're in verse number 9. Acts 15:9.
And put no difference between us and them, purifying their hearts by faith. Now, therefore, why tempt ye God to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear?
What is they saying? What is Peter saying? He didn't say put a yoke on the people. He said put a yoke on the disciples. Try to make us make choices. Because they understand that whatever choice we make, the people gonna follow that doctrine. Why are you putting a yoke upon us? Our fathers couldn't even get their hearts right. That's what he's saying. He's not saying that the fathers couldn't be circumcised or didn't be circumcised. He's saying their hearts wasn't circumcised because they focused so much on their foreskin being circumcised. So you want us to make a decision to put the people back under the same bondage of focusing on their foreskin and not their heart. Right? Anybody got anything they want to add?
sometimes it seems like people would want you to make a decision for them, not that you can be a scapegoat, but it takes the responsibility from you. You know, so somebody say, well, I did this because Moreh said do this, or I'm doing this because elders say doing this, without seeking, you know, the guidance from the Holy Spirit through the Word. So it absolves them from all responsibility. It kind of seems like that's what the people, they probably did it for clarity, for sakes, but I can see how some did it to try to, you know, make you make the decision. So if it goes wrong, I can say, well, hey, you told me to do it.
People do it all the time.
You do it all the time. What you say, like they say, well, wait, I had this situation. What you think I should do?
I'm gonna say what God saying.
Right. And that's the answer right there. But a lot of times people will say, well, what do you think?
What do you think? How should I
But
handle
then
it?
you ask them, what do you think about it? They don't have an answer. Because they looking for the answer from you.
Right.
You go to the first one, opinion, and not the answer.
That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people ask me all the time, should I leave my church? I said, what God said.
And that's fine.
You know why? Because your blood not gonna be on my hands.
Come on, bro.
Whatever decision you make, because I can't tell you to leave. I can't tell you to leave. I'm not going to tell you to leave.
A lot of times people act off emotion.
Yeah.
You done got pissed off with somebody because they ain't gonna do what you want them to do. Or say it the way you want to say, now you well, I need to leave. We go ask somebody else, should I leave? Oh, you already know the answer before you ask.
Right. Because he wouldn't let you put on a program at the church. Now you mad, you want to leave. Right. And here's my thing. If you tell me you came from such and such church, I'm calling that.
Come on.
I'm calling pastor.
Come on.
I'm telling y'all right now, whole live. You come to Boom, and you said, well, I left such and such over there. I'm calling. I'm gonna find out what happened. Did this person, you know, were they have an integrity? Was it outstanding? What is the situation? And they can lie all they want to, or they can tell the truth. But I'm going to petition the Most High, and we're gonna make a decision.
Come on.
Whether or not what the situation is. I'm gonna use wisdom in that situation. Right. I'm gonna get with the leaders and the elders here, and I'm gonna say, this person here came from this particular place. This was the issue. How do we deal with this? It's not just on me, because we're gonna be a body.
That's right.
We gotta have leadership. And I'm gonna ask.
That's right.
So you might want to tell the truth. Do what you, Brother Bennett said, TTAS. Tell the truth and stay safe. I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, because now these churches now doing background checks. Pedophiles that have, they have to do background checks because they can get sued.
Yeah.
Especially the major churches, they have to do it.
Yeah, you can. There are also like areas like this area that you can go online, and they have like online of all the pedophiles that's in the area, public records.
They can't even work with you.
Yeah, so tell me, hey, come around here with that crazy, these spiritual hands on you. Where we at? Come on. Verse 11, come on, read.
But we believe that through the grace of Yeshua HaMashiach, we shall be saved even as they.
Look at what Peter said. Peter said, we believe in him. Peter took the emphasis off the laws of Moses and put the emphasis on Hamashiach. Why? Why did he do that?
He left that Levitical priesthood and went straight to the Melchizedek.
Say it again. He did what?
He moved from the Levitical priesthood straight to the priesthood of Melchizedek.
That's right. That's why he said, we believe. Don't come in here with that stuff about no Moses. Now let me be clear. You know, you have people twisting. They over there, they banging on Moses. No, we're not banging on Moses. We understand that the Torah was given to Moses.
Greater than Moses had come.
Right? But if we say we are following Yeshua HaMashiach, we are following that priest.
Yes.
And that priest came to fulfill, not destroy.
He came to bring a greater understanding of the law.
Yes.
And it's good.
Dark.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
He came to bring a greater understanding of the law. Right? He came to fulfill, not to destroy. Let me show you how to do this. I love you so much, I left glory to come down here to walk in this flesh. I put on sin to show you how to defeat sin.
No, you read what I said, but let me show you what I meant.
That's right. Because obviously, y'all not doing it. You're not doing it. And in order for you to continue what I called you to be, I got to come down here and show you how to do it, die for you, so that way you can show others how to walk in it, because I came and died for you, that way they may have salvation as well.
That's right.
And you can point them to me, because I want to use you to do that. That's what makes you great and separate, because he chose you to lead and guide the world. Now here's the thing. Those who are not of Israel's blood, when they accept Yeshua HaMashiach, and they keep the covenant, no longer are they your Gentile brothers.
That's right.
Now they are Israel.
Right.
So guess what? They got a responsibility to do the same thing you're doing.
That's right. Yep.
They have the same responsibility. See, everybody, that's what I'm saying. Everybody want the blessings, but they don't want to be obedient. Everybody want the blessings, but don't nobody want to experience getting their behind spanked. Because the Most High will spank your behind too for being disobedient. Right? Come on, let's get finished here.
Then all the multitude kept silence and gave audience to Barnabas and Paul, declaring what miracles and wonders of Yah and what been wrought among the Gentiles by them.
Come on.
And after they had held their peace, James answered, saying, Men and brethren, hearken unto me. Simeon hath declared how Yah at the first did visit the Gentiles to take out of them a people for his name.
Now stop right there. Everybody ain't talking.
That's right.
Everybody don't have an opinion. And they're not going to give the floor to everybody to talk. This is for everybody in the congregation now got something to say. Everybody got an opinion, and everybody want to tell you what to do. This is the reason why he told Moses, choose elders of great reputation, so the people can listen to them and follow the instructions. It's the same thing here. You got James and Peter. The only time Barnabas and Paul talked was when they yielded the floor. They say, Barnabas, Paul, what you got to say? If they wouldn't have said that, Barnabas and Paul would have stood there like this the whole time. The only time they talked was about what was going on, what they came there for. The rest of the time they was quiet, receiving what was being said. Can you imagine if we did that?
Come on, bro.
A lot of turmoil is within the assemblies because everybody running their mouth. Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. Everybody, well, the Most High talk to me too. Yeah, he do talk to you, but right now, the Most High talking to us. And that's not suppression. Because we can't come to a consensus about what to do about the matter if everybody talking. And everybody got an opinion, and everybody going in different directions. It can't work like that. Okay? Come on, read.
And to this agree the words of the prophets as it is written. After this I will return, and will build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down. And I will build again the ruins thereof, and I will set it up, that the residue of men might seek after Yeshua and all the Gentiles upon whom my name is called, says the Lord, who doeth all these things.
Come on.
Known unto Yah are all his works from the beginning of the world. Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to Yah. But that we write unto them that they abstain.
Stop right there. Now I want y'all to pay attention to how these brothers are teaching. First of all, they remind them of what the prophecy said. Second of all, now they're going to take the prophecy and use the wisdom of the Ruach to bring revelation and understanding of what's going on. Read verse 19 again.
Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them.
Who talking? Who's this talking, y'all?
That's James.
Okay, Peter already talked. What was his part? Because him and James not talking about the same thing. Peter's emphasis, that's right, thank you, Roy. What is Peter's emphasis?
Don't don't put a yoke upon us with your what it is that what you guys are arguing about, because that's not the point.
Right.
That through him the Gentiles should receive salvation through his preaching.
Okay, now what's James' emphasis? Come on, let's read what James' emphasis is. 19, read it.
Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to Yah, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood.
So all of these things that he's writing, and he said, listen, we're not going to trouble them about circumcision, right? But the things that he is writing is still in the Torah, right? It's still in the Torah.
Wow.
Abstain from pollution of idols, fornication, from strangle, and from blood. Don't be eating food that was strangled, choked out, the life choked out, and don't be eating food with blood in it. So now my question is to those who say that they Gentiles, why am I seeing steak on your plate with full of blood on it? You don't even follow the New Testament. You eating steak that just came off the doggone cow, it's still twitching.
That thing very rare.
They got blood on the plate. I mean, this is the New Testament. That's within the Torah. That ain't even in the Ten Commandments. Come on.
About the wisdom that he used, he spoke first about them satisfying Paul and Barnabas' question as far as the spiritual part of the law, about them being circumcised. Then he went back and put a stop to the Pharisees, because remember up in verse 5, they wanted them that it was needful to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses.
That's right.
So he put that pollution, blood, all that's in the law. So he satisfied both parties.
That's
you
right.
Just see that wisdom that he used right there through the Spirit.
This
Kill
is
them both.
This the same James that says don't have no respect of persons. He using wisdom in that. Then people want to take that and say, wait a second, if you break one law, you break them all.
Right.
If you read in context from the beginning of his letter, he talks about not having respect as a person. Meaning that respect as a person is no different than you commit murder or fornication. There's no difference. Come on, let's finish up. Over here. Come on.
For Moses of old time has in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath.
Stop right there. So we don't have to, these are new converts. See, the problem is when people become new converts, you want to take the totality of the law and body slam it with it.
Yes.
Do everything.
And you can do everything. And then they find themselves in a month, 6 months, walking away from the faith because you done body slam and made them feel bad.
Make it impossible to serve, and makes it impossible for you to feel like there is salvation for you, because the emphasis is not on salvation. The emphasis is following the law to the letter, which no one can do.
Now check this out. Remember in Paul's letters, Paul talked about the schoolmaster. We're not under the law. We don't need the schoolmaster. This is what James doing. James is saying, we're going to give them a schoolmaster, but they're not going to be in school all day. James is saying, okay, don't eat this, don't do that, stay away from fornication. This is the letter we're going to write to them. But then he concludes in verse 21, he said, listen, they will eventually learn the totality of the law. But these are the simple things that they can keep.
Do what you can do until you grow.
Keep what you know until you grow. Y'all hear me say this all the time. People ask me, well, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do that? Well, what do you know? Keep that until you mature. Because the schoolmaster is going to teach you if you stay in class. The problem is we got too many people dropping out early because they taking classes. They want to take hard classes that those of us who've been walking for a while, because they have the pressure trying to keep up the speed with us. Because we making them, oh, you gotta come on, you gotta keep up, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. You can't do this. They missing all the basics, the nutrients. You're missing all of that. You're missing all of that because you're trying to keep up. You are a freshman in college. Most freshmen in college, if they're not disciplined, they will flunk out. Because you know why? Because the juniors and the seniors who've been there a long time, they go out and party. It seems like they never go to class. But at the end of the semester, they got A's and B's, and you sitting there looking crazy because you about to flunk out as a freshman. Because you was at the club with them on Tuesday night, drinking dollar drinks.
$2 Tuesday.
$2 Tuesdays. All this stuff. 25-cent wing night.
Always say.
I'm telling you, when I was in college, I seen it. It's a struggle for a freshman. Because you try to be down with everybody and keep up. And then come on, we going out tonight, we going out tonight. You're like, man, okay. Then they say the club in at 3 o'clock. Now you don't know how to handle the situation, so you put all of your classes at 7 o'clock. They've been there long enough to know that my first class started at 1. So they go out and party and hang out. Your class at 7, you done miss history, you done miss all this other stuff. You waking up at 12 because you're hungover and you find yourself about to flunk out. Instead of somebody that's mature, those of us who mature should say, slow down, youngster. Let me help you plot your classes. But in college, it's every man for himself. And within Israel, it's every man for himself. Or you want to disciple somebody to be like you more than you want to disciple them to be like Christ. You a Pharisee. You go land and seed, 2 or 4, trying to find someone you can convert. And you make them 10 times more of a devil than they was before they even met you. Go ahead, bro. You have some, tell some.
I thank the Most High for the law of ignorance.
Yeah, the law of ignorance, yeah.
Man, I thank him for that law.
Yeah, definitely. We all need that. All right, so let's finish up last verse, verse 22.
Then please get the apostles and elders with the whole church to send chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas, namely Judas surnamed Barsabas, and Silas, chief men among the brethren.
So these brothers were sent out by the elders and apostles. What Peter and James brought forth clarity and revelation, it pleased the elders, it pleased the people, and they appointed. Notice, they didn't self-appoint themselves. Paul and Barnabas didn't say, well, because we brought the matter up, they feel like we should be going to be the ones who go and teach it. No, there's still people being appointed. You cannot self-appoint yourself in this thing. There has to be someone that will appoint you. Look what it says. Come on, read verse number 23. We'll close right there.
And they wrote letters by them after this manner. The apostles and elders and brethren send greeting unto the brethren which are of the Gentiles in Antioch and Syria and Sicilia. For as much as we have heard that certain which out from us have troubled you with words, subverting your souls, saying, ye must be circumcised and keep the law, to whom we gave no such command.
Woo! You see that? Look at that, man. Boy, them apostles ain't playing. We didn't tell these folks to go. That's what I'm saying. We need to ask for who told you to teach this stuff in Israel.
It's trash.
That's what we need to be asking for. Where did you get that from? Who told you to teach that?
And it will lead.
Yeah, he said, we didn't teach it. We're going to cover our trail. We voted on it. We may come to an agreement. Now let's send the letters out. So anybody teaching this garbage here, they didn't come from us.
Right.
Because the people understood that if certain things were being taught, or where the apostles had to agree with it, they said, no, we're not going to play that. You're not going to run our name in the dirt until we agree with this foolishness. No, we're going to send out letters. These folks who teaching this stuff did not come from Boom. Serious. How is that? They didn't come from Jerusalem. Paul, we didn't do. Peter, James, and John, all them other, and the elders, we did not co-sign this mess.
Right.
So we need to start finding out. You listening to certain doctrines or people come to you with stuff, you need to find out who their teacher was. You need to find out who that teacher was. Because I'm telling you, it's a trail. If you do the investigation, you're going to find out it's going to lead you right back to somebody who came up with this foolishness. And that person get to teach it, and that person get to teach it, and that person get to teach it, and all this stuff. And when you start finding out who these teachers are, you start digging into the teachers, you're like, man, this is some mess. These folk crazy. You teaching me something, and your teacher telling me he the Holy Spirit. Oh, this stuff crazy. So we're going to end right there. And we're going to get ready. What time is it?
10:44.
Oh, we good. We started right on time. Pretty much down time. Anybody got anything before we conclude and get ready for our celebration service? Anybody got anything? Y'all good?
I just want to say that was good.
Man,
It's always good.
Lesson is always.
I'll tell you, because you right about that, the school teaching part, because you remember, I wasn't going to go eat on the Saturday.
We laugh about that all the time. We laugh about that all the time. That Brother Bernard, boy, he was looking at us like we were some devils.
He sure was.
What? I packed my own lunch. I say, okay, sir. You go eat your cheese sandwich in the car.
But we're going to go partake.
don't find my living.
But when you new into it, you know, you need to be around some leadership that's going to teach you the right way. Because I'm like, I didn't have nobody. And see, I talked to you about some gentlemen who are self-taught.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have anybody over you to teach you, even I'm older than you are.
Yeah.
But I still come to you for wisdom in the word.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, we have to trust one another and know that, just because there's leadership, that doesn't, we're not lording over you.
Right.
We just want to make sure that you're equipped and you're getting the right thing you need to get, and things like that. And there's sometimes, there will be, tough love, but at the same time, it's from a good place when the leadership, and that's very important. So that's what we're trying to build a community and a family. So if we do have an engaging tough times, the conversation is tough love, that it's from a good place. So all right, y'all. Well, we'll see y'all here in a few minutes. We get ready, and everybody good. What the chest want?
That's the way of saying I agree with you.
Oh, okay. I ain't know. It might have been the corona. I ain't know. I gotta make sure this kid. I'm like, you okay? All right.
I have to get isolated. Hey, 14 days quarantine.
really go back over the book on stuff we don't read before. And we all get it. You know what I'm saying? We hear, we like, hold up, I didn't hear it like this all the time. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, Lord. You know, so you would never leave me. You claim because I'm made for something. Okay. Worth fighting for.
Shabbat shalom, you might